Ironside will not be seen tonight, so we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. You know, at the beginning of the year, I always like to have comic journalists on to talk about not only comics, but also what's happening in the nerd culture. So really happy to welcome Chris Arrant to Word Balloon. I think it's your first time on Word Balloon. Chris, welcome.
Yes, it is. Thank you for having me, John, and thanks for Sal for sponsoring the show. Like everybody should check out Hostage.
Great, really great book. I love Sal's art. I think it's so amazing, and really, this is I know it's a story that's been burning with him for several years. Well, honestly, man, you've always been kind to me. You put me on panels at places like C2E2, and I get to flap my gums. But we've known each other a long time. How long were you with Games Radar and Newsarama before jumping to the
Um,
Popverse?
I started with Newsarama back in 2003. I became full time in 2015. I was there when John was a partner like with Newsarama, and like we ran transcripts of some of his amazing podcasts. It was and still is one of the best like long form like interviews like in the comic sphere, like going way back. Like everyone should make sure to check out the archives. There's some amazing stuff.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And it's no, you're right. I mean, God, I had Matt Brady on a couple months ago with his
Hmm.
latest book, his Rick and Morty book, and a few other things that he was doing.
Yeah.
No, I miss those days. They were fun. Vanita and Matt and I and Mike, you know, back in the day and everything. And
Yeah.
they flattered the hell out of me very early on with Word Balloon. Said, "Hey, you want to jump in?" And I'm like, "Sure, that'll be great."
Yeah, like it's really great. Like it feels like another time, but you still see like echoes of like the old kind of comic sphere, like the
Yeah.
blogosphere, like as it was called. But yeah, like I was with Newsarama till 2021, and then I jumped over to ReadPop to launch this new comics and pop culture site we have called Popverse.
Yeah, the Popverse, very cool. Thepopverse.com
Yeah,
for
the
people, correct? You know,
popverse.com.
yes, and hey, man, no, you know, daily content and everything, and you assembled a great group of people. Chloe Maval, I think, is a great essayist, and I'm really glad she's doing content for you guys. Our good friend Ashley Robinson doing some great video interviews, and Graham McMillan today, big news. One of your big headlines. More details on the aftershock bankruptcy.
Yeah, like the aftershock thing is really I'm like interesting and also unfortunate. Like it's as an editor, like a reporter, it's always sad to have to report bad news, and we try to take it very carefully, but at the same time, we know that kind of news needs to get out there, just so there's less miscommunication and things, and just people can just get like the straight facts and like context on how to understand it. like just for the story that we published today, we probably read about 100 pages of like legal filings, talked to some court experts, just so people could understand like all like the legalese and just turn it in like to like common language. And as we record this, it's January 11th. There's going to be a court hearing tomorrow that should have some interesting stuff to further file stories on.
They're trying to get access to funds so that they can maintain their employees, give them their benefits, give them their paychecks and everything. Am I correct? Is that what the subject is for tomorrow?
Yeah, that's what's in the court filings. I'll try to be a little bit specific, but basically, like Aftershock filed like in late December. I wrote a story on it today that they're asking to use some of the funds that they have left to pay, not just for their TV business, but on the comic side, to pay comic printers, comics distributors, which would mean Diamond and possibly Comixology, but also to pay their staff. Like they mentioned in there, this isn't me putting words in, but some of their staff, that would be like the editors, the graphic designers, stuff like that, like haven't been paid since the beginning of December, which is really unfortunate. Like I hope that people can get paid for the work that they've done.
Absolutely, man. No, I mean these are the people that I think get hurt the most, and it is unfortunate. I've been through this through my media corporate owners that I've worked for over 30 years in Chicago, and even before that, when I was downstate in Bloomington, Illinois, when I was a kid. Yeah, it's tough, man. And again, my sympathy to everybody that I know over at Aftershock. They were a great partner with Word Balloon for 4 years. And it's again, I'm sorry what happened, and what are you going to do? I'm on the public notice. I mean, if everyone reads the details and stuff, it shocked me. A friend of mine at Cato is like, "Oh, that sucks. You see the Aftershock thing?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Well, you're in it," and I'm like, "Oh, all right." So there you go, everybody. Full disclosure as far as Word Balloon's association with Aftershock.
Yeah, like same thing on my side. Popverse's parent company, Reed Pop, was on the filings for like the bankruptcy thing, but that was the first I heard of it. Is like reading our name in there. Really, for us, just in transparency, there hasn't been any pushback or like direction from Reed Pop. This the coverage of this has fully been just myself, Graham, and deputy editor Tiffany Babb just deciding what is best and trying to go deep and have people really understand what's going on, so they can. And like in some ways, it's like the creators finding out directly from our stories, like what's happening. But in other cases, it's people otherwise like in the like industry, like even just casual like observers just trying to figure it out, because it is a lot of like lawyer like paperwork. There's some filings. I've spent a couple $100 on like getting like court like filings just to kind of understand what's going on and give people the complete picture.
No, I understand, man. And, obviously a lot of us that participate in the hobby, beyond buying our books and stuff, are interested in how the industry is doing. I mean, God, I can't remember who I was talking to, but we were laughing about how literally for the last 50 plus years, the word is comics are dying. And, and even and certainly at the beginning of the pandemic, I think everybody, and when Diamond shut down for those 6 weeks, I think everybody caught their breath. Then we found out that, hey, guess what? When everyone was in lockdown, everybody was reading. So a lot of comic books were being bought, which was great. But it sounds like, and again, I haven't really crunched the numbers. I don't know if you have, but it does sound like there was a little dip in 2022.
From what I understand it, like I wouldn't say an overall dip. I just think different parts of the audience basically stop reading or change their reading habits. Like you see more towards like digital reading. That's not just Comixology, but also like the DC like universe, Marvel Unlimited, and of course like webtoons and tapas. Like in some ways, I think the COVID, the pandemic, the distributions shutdown, printing delays in some ways accelerated this transition to whatever this new thing is. But I don't think nothing will ever stop changing. But this is very similar to like in the 80s when comics switched from being like primarily like a newsstand thing to being like a direct market, which like precipitated long boxes like becoming like a big thing and kind of transition to graphic novels. But I think we're in the middle of a big change. But if someone tells you they know what's going to happen in the next 5 years, you need to be very, very cautious.
You are absolutely right, Chris. And honestly, And I've been fortunate with the various things that I've covered in broadcasting and now in podcasting and stuff. I'm kind of like the members of Congress who weren't arguing with each other, and we're all eating popcorn and watching what was happening on the other side of the aisle. We're like, okay, what's next? It's fascinating, and I again, I want for everybody to make money and be comfortable. I don't want to see anybody lose in this situation. But you're right, everything is changing, and I mean, God, DC. I mean, how do you take the temperature of DC right now and moving forward? And again, I'm not asking you for a 5-year plan, but what do you see in the immediate future? What are you looking for in 2023 from DC?
I think DC is at a very interesting point. Like I think their upcoming storyline of Dawn of DC, that is a storyline, but that's more than something else. Like I think they're very much in a transition phase. That isn't just for comics. That's for the entire DC business as a brand. Like I don't want to say content. Like content's kind of a word that I hate coming out of my mouth, but like movies and everything else. This is the dawn of something different.
Yeah.
Like this is. There's been changes backstage in like editorial and staffing that happened months, in some cases years ago, but like you and I know, and many of your readers are like well informed to know that those kind of changes don't make their way to the finished product for months. Like this is like whatever, like if a new book, like say the new Superman title launches this month, like that wasn't figured out in December
Right.
or November. Like that was figured out 6 months to a year ago, and all these
Sure.
changes are like taking effect. So I'm really interested to see how but I am a fan of comics, and so so I'm interested to see how these changes manifest in comics. And also they have in terms of the comics itself, they made this curious step, like the Dawn of DC, the launch titles, the relaunch titles. Like there's only one that's a Batman centric title, while Batman is like the cornerstone of DC, and there's no Justice League title, and there's some other titles that are missing that Graham and I have like reported on. It's just titles that are conspicuously like absent, and I really think this is a absence makes the heart grow fonder kind of thing for like people like me. When I first started reporting, like I remember there was the Thor run before J. Michael Straczynski, and they purposely took Thor off the board. He was without a title for months. They had the clone of Thor in Civil War, and they built up to his return. Yeah. I think this is a similar, like I think people will see that in various things that they're a fan of, and just how the absence and then it comes back and it makes it a big deal. Like Matt Fraction once said that death in comics is just a transitional thing, and it's part of this storyline to the ultimate return. Like that is for death of characters, but also the symbolic death of titles and them returning at some point. Like I'm interested to see, like I'm interested to read the comics one by one, like every week, like so many of us. But I'm also interested to see the grand plan, like as it unfolds. Like I've been. Like I have been covering comics to see like Civil War. I've been covering comics to see the new 52 like rollout in DCU and everything. So I'm interested as an industry like observer to see how they lay that out and how just strategically their staff is from that. Like as we reported, I believe it was earlier this month, like DC's division was one of the only divisions inside Warner Brothers that wasn't subject to layoffs with the acquisition. We were concerned, and there was some journalists and commentators that presumed or called that there would be layoffs, and ultimately there wasn't. They're hiring new positions if you follow like the job listings. But there was a layoffs years ago that DC is still kind of clawing its back from. But it's interesting to see what DC, the staff, like the people that work there, like what they put out, like what they can come up with and put out in the next 6 to 12 months.
I agree. I think, and honestly, I do think that creatively, there's a lot of really interesting ideas happening. I'm going to talk to Josh Williamson about a lot of his plans post Dark Crisis and everything. And it doesn't surprise me that the Justice League are going to stay on ice for a while. I mean, I remember, and again, showing my age, but I remember in the 80s when JLA Detroit just kind of petered out.
Yeah.
And it really, and I understand, because again, it was like, well, it just too many new members. At least my feeling, too many new members, and the elite weren't there. And I mean, and you see that kind of wave happen in other times with the Justice League. So yeah, put them on ice for a while, and then make a big announcement with a great writer and a great artist that has never done it before and is, ready for the challenge. I remember when Brad Meltzer took over, that was great, elite and everything. When Wade and Howard Porter were doing it back in the day, wasn't it? I think it was Howard Porter.
Yep.
Yeah, well, great stuff, man. So no, I get it. And yeah, I think you're right. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And how about, Marvel, obviously? It's very interesting. I mean, I love the idea, too, before we get off of DC, James Gunn is going to make his announcements. We're not going to see the likelihood of a James Gunn product other than the next season of Peacemaker until 25. It's out. I mean, and tell me if you think there's going to be something earlier.
James Gunn is a very different type of filmmaker. You even saw that before he became like one of the heads of DC Films. When he was filming, he filmed part of Peacemaker on the set of Guardians. He filmed part of Guardians on the set of Peacemaker. Him to be able to find interesting ways to get things done in a budget-friendly way. I'm interested to see how that will go towards him there. Like we say, Peacemaker season 2, that's not even filmed yet, as far as I know. Like people can always correct me in the comments if it is, but like I think there's things that he could do to play around with the turnaround times, but also directions he could make with the TV product where maybe he's not directing it or like writing it, but he has his stamp on it. Like he's gone into producing since Guardians 1 and had others like who share his similar thought processes that could do that. At the same time, you just saw last week Warner Brothers renewed Greg Berlanti's deal with DC. Yes. And the idea of Greg working together with James sounds pretty like interesting. And I think there's a lot of potential for collaboration there. And Gunn seems like very much like someone that wants to collaborate. But like he does have to make some major changes to set things up for the future. Because remember, as a director, he has to think not just in days, but in months and years. But as someone that's co-head of a studio, he has to think in decade terms. And so he has to really set up this for success.
Well, that's why we already know that what the DC movie product and TV product is going to be in 23. I was surprised that Joker 2 wasn't going to come out till 24, fall of 24. And that really did surprise me. But I mean, I was having this discussion on a word balloon a couple of weeks ago where I'm like, it just seems like unless they already have, and they may very well have scripts in the pipeline that James has in the pipeline, but it always seems like it takes like 2 years to make a movie, for example, and even TV shows for that matter. At least an initial startup to finally, appearing on screen, and that's kind of why I'm like, all right, I mean, it'll be interesting. He hasn't made his public declaration like a Kevin Feige for a multi-year plan yet. I mean, that we're waiting still for those announcements that are supposed to come this month. Am I right?
Yeah, it's there's been word that it's going to be sometime this month. I'll be interested to see where. But also, I'm curious to see if he lays out a multi-year plan or just starts with just making one good movie, 2 good movies, 3 good movies, and then come up with a plan. Like people need to look back and see Iron Man, to put like the post-credit scene, which was written by Bendis on a lark, just a last minute. Like there was no 5-year plan back during Iron Man. So I think hoisting this big thing onto Gunn that we want to happen, I think we need to wait and give him some time. Like I think we need good movies before we need a good interconnected universe. And you have to admit, DC historically has been really good at making very good movies, but maybe not an interconnected cinematic universe. Like I'd be interested to see like them taking the reins of creating a great Superman movie, creating a great Flash movie. Heck, let's create a great like Snapper Car movie. Like who knows? Like this is the man that did Guardians of the Galaxy, who wasn't like an A-list title like forever. Like so,
Chris, I don't know about you, but seriously, when talking to Brian and talking to Casada, and they're like, "We're doing Guardians of the Galaxy," and I'm like, "Why?" Because I'm just like, and I'm thinking Vance Astro and the comic book Guardians prior to the lineup they came up with for the movie and stuff. And still, I'm like, I mean, and now, goddamn, Groot and Rocket are like favorite toys. Children, I
Yeah.
love seeing children that have Baby Groot or have a Rocket toy and stuff. And it's like that's amazing. That. Who would have thought?
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. And even that script came out from like a writer's room project where they hired new writers to pitch things. And it was a woman, I'm sorry that I forget her name, but
I don't
that
know.
she came up with the pitch for that, and Marvel thought it was good. Like even though the comics didn't sell, like it was great that Marvel didn't think, well, we're only going to turn the best-selling comics into movies. When they thought, let's make the most interesting movies that people will like. Some things work better in movies and TV than in comics, and as you and I know, some things work better in comics than they ever can in like movies and TV.
Yep.
I'd love for James Gunn to have that kind of approach where he doesn't look at the sales charts before he looks at which DC movies to make, but looks at what's the most like interesting things.
You know, I really enjoyed his Suicide Squad. I thought it was terrific. Obviously, I'm enjoying Peacemaker. Look at all the heroes that he threw into Peacemaker, like Judo Master and Vigilante and stuff. It's like no. I have a very strong feeling that he's looking very hard at Metamorpho as much as he might be what I'm going to do with Superman or whatever. So, I think we're going to be okay from that standpoint. What about Marvel? We mentioned Marvel. I'll be honest. I think on TV there were a lot of hits on Phase 4, not so much on the movie side. They were never bad movies, but they did seem ordinary in the parameters of a Marvel sense, where they weren't exceptional, but they were just okay. It's the next chapter or whatever. How did you feel about Phase 4?
Um, Phase 4, I think, was a lot of like I think to try to do something as big as Endgame again right out of the gate would just be setting themselves up for failure.
I agree.
Like I was in bands, like you got to have ups and downs, and you got to have different kinds of scales of project. And I think reestablishing kind of a normal scale in this kind of post Endgame where the world knows that superheroes exist and supervillains exist, kind of setting up that new status quo so they can go big. Like if everything is big and in-game size, then you just lose the scale of things if everything's big. Like you need stuff small to understand stuff being big. I purposely think that was them setting up another range of small to middle scale things so they can make the Phase 5 where everything comes back together. Like if you see, like right now, this is a spoiler to article that we're writing up that other people have done versions of, but we have something like I think we have an interesting frame of it is they're building the Young Avengers through various projects the same way they built the Avengers is in their own solo movies or as supporting characters in other people's movies like Nick Fury, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and even like Coulson, building that up through the various Phase 4 and some of the Phase 3 stuff to really come together. And you start to see this threat of Kang that could be that thing that needs to come together. There just needs to be some inciting point, some catalyst, some Nick Fury type that brings them together. And like I think there's some interesting things that we're gonna look back and see this as kind of like setting the stage for what's next.
I agree with that. I just felt like, and again, maybe it's rose-colored glasses, but it just seems like those individual initial Marvel movies had more punch. And yes, they were the A-list heroes, but I just feel it's feeling a little formulaic. And I still love the formula, and I'm still drinking the Kool-Aid when it comes to Marvel and DC as well. I'm still rooting for DC. But yeah, I just felt like the Doctor Strange movie, I see the through line, especially for Young Avengers, when you consider some of the supporting roles. And I would imagine Ms. Marvel might show up in a Young Avengers movie. Kate Bishop Hawkeye will likely show up in a Young Avengers movie. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think of the Doctor Strange movie, and God, you'll forgive me. COVID obviously conflates everything. Shang-Chi and Black Widow were last year.
Yeah.
Well, were they 22 or were they 21?
21, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, man. And again, I believe they were still part of Phase 4. Just felt this kind of level of ordinary. And
Yeah.
again, it's still on the TV side, though, a lot of the TV series I thought were exceptional, unlike the movies.
Yeah, and you can see kind of the TV side is like I feel in some ways this isn't anything Marvel has said behind the scenes or something like they were enlisted to be part of the launch product for Disney Plus. So like some of the projects, like they've said that Loki was originally going to be a movie, but Disney Plus like came along and they wanted to turn it into a serialized show. Then you have things like Armor Wars, which now that Disney Plus is launched and successful, that Armor Wars was going to be a Disney Plus show that now they're transitioning it to be a movie. But I really think they're using it to basically set the stage once again to have this big culminating thing. Like people look back to comics. There's Civil War, Secret Invasion. There were moments in between then where it wasn't like just everything blowing the doors off, and I think that's what we're doing is they're basically a reloading now. And I do think we're in some cases we're spoiled about like as you and I are old enough to remember the dark times of like the 90s and superhero movies. Like I think if Doctor Strange would have came out in the 90s, like Doctor Strange 2 even, we would just be blown away. Like we're
Absolutely.
like yeah, like I think the bar is higher now, and like in some ways like we can see the framework, see the skeletons of things, see the formula. And I think there's no getting away from the formula unless you have just these not once in a generation, but these really unique filmmakers that come along, like Taika Waititi that kind of re-energized the Thor franchise, and just things that come along. But
Absolutely.
it,
The Russo brothers are killing it. No, I mean, we're getting a lot of, right. Cogler, certainly. I mean, my God. Yeah, I'm with you on that front. Definitely. I
yeah,
mean, and that's interesting too, because like the Bond franchise, Marvel are, and forgive the adjective, everybody, but heavy handed in terms of that it's producer driven. But I
mhm,
think, and people like Edgar Wright decided they couldn't work under those parameters. But a lot of directors, I think, are showing they can and are also putting their stamp on a distinct product. Yeah. But like I said, I wasn't feeling it as much from the last handful of movies. I want to give Ed Cato a shout out because he loves the fact that you did the comic publisher Christmas card column. I'm
thank you,
su-
Ed. I
I'm sure
appreciate
Ed was
that.
part of that. I'm sure
Yeah,
Ed was.
that's something that I enjoy. I like every year collecting all the Christmas cards.
Oh yeah.
I hope to for the next season go back. I have like the archives of all the Christmas cards going back to the early 2000s from all the publishers. I look forward to showing that off. Thanks, Ed.
It's.
But go
I was
ahead.
going to say real fast regarding the Christmas cards. It's kind of sad because I'll talk to Matt Brady or Mike Doran and stuff back in the old Newsarama days, and when they weren't part of the giant mega conglomerates as DC and Marvel are now, there was a looseness, and I know Joe would like help Brady out with like an April Fool's thing and
Hmm.
whip off a quick sketch or something like that. It'd be, oh no, Spider-Man is joining, whatever, A-Force, even though he's a man. What?
Yeah.
What's going on? April Fool. And again, the companies would participate, and it's a shame that things are a little tougher to do like that these days.
Yeah, it's tougher to do from the companies, and also just the landscape of comics journalism and websites have kind of changed.
Yeah,
Like you and I have seen kind of comic publishers go into like announcing their own news, and you've seen more people go to get their news direct from the source, even though it's I wouldn't say biased to the publisher because that's their version of events, but it
sure.
just goes through a different lens. But going back to what we're talking about, like what we're
Yeah, sorry,
seeing
buddy. I didn't mean to interrupt your
no,
thought.
with Marvel is it's serialized. Like some people would say TV, but it's serialized by comics. Like producer-led Marvel Studios sounds a lot like Marvel Comics of like the 70s and 80s and 90s, where it's kind of led by that. And the positive of it is you have a unified vision, but the negative of it is you have a unified vision. So it's kind of like I like balancing that out and how it kind of fits in there. But at the same time, like Werewolf by Night, like even though that may not be your favorite thing, I
It
was
was
pretty
great.
excited that they did it different.
It was
And,
great.
yeah,
I loved it, man. No, are you kidding me? Again, I mean, that's and again, we got it on the TV side. That's the
yeah.
inventive stuff that I do appreciate, and I do think it was kind of a mixed bag as far as Phase 4. But no, that's definitely one of the highlights. I thought that was just terrific. I should mention as we're talking also about the Popverse and its coverage and stuff. This is very nice, everybody. This is for Word Balloon listeners and viewers. Chris is offering this thing. You can get your first month of a Popverse membership for just $1 by visiting bit.ly/the Popverse and using the coupon code WordBalloonPod. Thanks, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate you the offer of the people that listen and view.
Yeah, just to, if you don't mind, just to explain, like much of our content is free to the public, but we do have some long form comics journalism pieces, like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 word, like interviews, like that we do put as a members only benefit. But also, we have panels from upcoming conventions that we have primarily for members. Like we're going to be at Emerald City in Seattle in March. We're going to be at Chicago, and like we filmed some of the biggest panels there, like, and we put those like for members only that can basically watch those panels, and we have them up in perpetuity. Well, we're also in the process, since we took over, since we started in May of 22, is getting panels from older conventions, and then the Reed Pop family, and also like adding those two there. Like I have a panel from just after the launch of a Loki, with much of the cast of Loki talking about the TV show, and there's some really choice moments that when we debut that later this month, that people will want to hear going into Kang's return in Ant-Man 3. So yeah, there's some real gems in there that we're really pulling out, that like you get as a paid member. Like you not only get those panels, but you get to feel that you support like the whole team and ourselves, and doing kind of this long form journalism and reporting, like we've done on Aftershock and on like Oni Press, and on us like breaking the news that there wasn't going to be any more like DC fandom events, things like that. That's what the paid membership like goes to supporting.
Yeah, that was a disappointing story and headline, and I do remember seeing that. Also, I know on the free side, you guys just posted the Harvey Awards from last fall, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of fun. You know, dude, you don't have to, as you know, you don't have to sell me on convention content and its value beyond the attendees. And I've always appreciated the arrangements that I've had with the various conventions that allow me to share the audio and sometimes video of my panels that I'm involved with. And you know, I've got a great relationship with Mitch Halleck at Terrificon,
Hmm.
and every summer, man, I get these exceptional interviews. Ramita Jr. and
Hmm.
Jim Shooter for the first time. I'd meant to talk to him for years, and you know, that was my first real sit down with him. He was great. Garth Ennis was amazing. Yeah, just I mean, this all the Spider-Man writers we had on
Yeah.
together and stuff. Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, like, I think really just conventions are a place to have these once in a lifetime like conversations and panels. And now, thanks to the work that you do and the work that Popverse does, we can keep some of that, and for the people that didn't make it there, and
Yeah,
making podcasts and recordings of talks like isn't just limited to TED Talks, but we have like amazing things like panels with George Perez, like before he left us,
yeah,
that we're going to be debuting, and things like that, just to remember. And like just the hard work that these comic creators put in, not just in the books they drew, the stories they wrote, but also these panel like conversations that we really enjoy, basically showing off. And like it's not just for comics; we have stuff for like movies and TV that we're
absolutely.
unveiling on almost like a weekly basis.
That's great, man. No, I hear you. Remember when I don't know if you ever would scoot around the Comics Journal's website, you know, 20 years ago or so, but they had a lot of great, like really old panels from like the 70s and 80s. And I know,
Interesting.
oh my God, just really, really like Gil Kane and
Mm,
even Bern Hogarth. Not was it Bern Hogarth, the Tarzan guy, or was maybe it was definitely Hal Foster, and just
wow.
yeah, these legends, man. And also, all right, here's a great tip, everybody. Tomorrow, or I should say, Comic Book Artist put out this great Will Eisner documentary, but in the bonus features were all the audio interviews that Will did for his Shop Talk articles that he used to have in Kitchen Sink Press when he would do the Spirit Monthlies, but
Mhm.
also they Dark Horse traded all those interviews as well. And it's just so great to literally hear Jack Kirby in his own words, or Eisner, or all the, you know, and Milt Kniff was still alive, the Terry and the Pirates artist. Just these
Yeah.
incredible conversations. That's kind of the point of Word Balloon. I mean, that's certainly the ambition with every conversation I have. And no, it's good, man. I'm glad. How are things going for the premium content for the Popverse? Are you finding because again, you're hey man, you guys are first of all, as I've told you, Chris, and I've said it earlier, you guys have assembled a fantastic staff of real good comic journalists that really know what they're doing. But you're also in competition with a lot of 24/7 websites that have had a few years on you.
Yeah, like that's like we're joining a very like competitive field, and from previously starting at big sites, now we're kind of like a small site supported by a big company of Read Pop, and we have these
Sure.
panels going for us, and I was very like fortunate to be able to hire pretty much like an all-star list of comics and pop culture like journalists between Tiffany Babb, who was the deputy editor who I brought over from Panel X Panel, Graham, who I brought over from the Hollywood Reporter, Ashley, who's does the Geek History Lesson, has done some amazing work at Comic Book and DC, and then Veronica Valencia, who did work for like AfterBuzz, and also did work for Crunchyroll. And together, not just in them doing their job titles, but having the five of us in a room, like just talking about things and figuring out the best way to do things, and having like conventions together. I like we've really found what each of us are good at, and there's interesting collaborations that are happening, and that's not to mention like the freelancers that we have, the like Chloe, who you mentioned. Matt Brady is like one of our freelancers. I'm talking to some other familiar faces that'll be joining us like this year on like a freelance basis, as we're trying to figure out that mix of like I know that having like websites and the one that you visit for your trailers and stuff, that's a really thing that's earned like over years, but just how Popverse can differentiate itself from the others in there. Like I know, like say when Marvel like inevitably puts out a press release of a new Guardians book, like everybody's going to do their version of that. Is like, but we want to stand out. Like it's almost like that shelf test of how we can stand out. Not just a controversial headline to be controversial, but just a unique take. So you can say like I want to read what Graham McMillan thinks about Guardians of the Galaxy. I want to read what Fab thinks about like Enter the Blue. There was that's an amazing graphic novel that came out late last year by a cartoonist who's also a jazz like trumpeter. Like she has an interview with Dave Chisholm, the creator of that. That's just some amazing stuff that you'll probably be hearing a lot about the book when the like the award seasons pick up.
That sounds great, man. No, that's excellent. And, Eric, here another thing that again, and I conflate the COVID years with last year as well, but
Yeah.
it really and actually we saw a lot of projects that people were doing during COVID months when they had to kind of rely on themselves to generate new comics, and then the finished products were coming out last year. What do you think of Panel Syndicate and some of the others? I'm gonna save Subspec for its own subject. But what do you think of some of the alternative ways that creators were putting out comics? Obviously, crowdfunding is still very important. We're seeing new crowdfunding platforms as well. But yeah, what do how did you see the alternate? We talked about digital, but yeah, what about these other alternate platforms?
It's interesting. Like I have a different vantage point from that as like a person that was a freelancer for 12 years. Like what I see is them wanting to get uh like advances for books that they like that they do, or put stuff out in a unique format to test it out, and then they'll eventually get it published in print through someone else. Like you mentioned, like Panels Syndicate, most of those like ultimately end up with like an image like edition, both in both formats. But you'll see stuff like Substack and Patreon and even Kickstarter that eventually end up at like Image or IDW. I think it's just testing out because comics, like you and I know that comics is one like industry where the divide between comics creator and comics fan is very, very thin. Like what other place can you go out and tweet Tom King and hey, there's a chance that he'll tweet like back at you like he may like draw you something, but just because it's so slim, and just that connection that comics creators have with their fans, I think that shows through. And because spoilers, like comics like industry, like there's not a bunch of like millionaires here, that they need that direct support from fans to get going. I know some companies like Image have started to do advances for some of their creators, but but in some cases it's trying to get that money so like creators can't afford to stop doing work for hire and guaranteed money to try something amazing that on their own, that is a risk. Like people have to remember that creator owned comics is a risk, because there's not guaranteed money. Like even for some of the biggest creators, I can't say names, but even some of the biggest creators, like they would do more creator-owned books, but they can't afford to like their mortgage that doesn't let them take 6 months off when they're creating a book, and that's just thinking about writers. For artists, it's unimaginably more. Like, and you can see how some of your favorite creators in Marvel and DC that haven't done a lot of creator-owned, you may think they don't have the ideas. I think they probably have the ideas, but just it's hard to take a risk to, like, what essentially creator owned is starting your own business and you start from zero and you don't have any of that funding. While things like Patreon and Kickstarter allow you to get some of that funding so you can keep the lights on, so you can create sustainably. Like I realize I've kind of wandered off the subject, but even like comics journalism, you'll see like Comics Beat that has a like Patreon that everybody should support. That's one of the largest creator-owned comics journalism. They have women who write about comics who won or co-won the Eisners 3 years in a row. That they rely on crowdfunding. So I think it's just different ways to support things, and I think that, especially in comics journalism, it's not as ad supported as it used to be, like in the heyday, and the ads are like different. But getting back to comics, I think it's just different ways to support doing projects and doing them what might take 5 years to do if they get like advanced funding from creators, is they can maybe do it in a year or two. But I think on the flip side of that, they have to be responsible business people, that if they accept money, then they need to fulfill that commitment. or at least be transparent if there's problems happening, and so people can understand that situation.
I completely agree. And no, I don't mind you including comic journalism. I mean, hey, as you know, Word Balloon we have our own. I have my own Patreon for Word Balloon as well. Patreon.com/Word Balloon, and I appreciate all the support the league has been doing. I got hit by a withdrawal of a sponsorship, and we talked about it earlier. And I'll take this opportunity to remind everyone, if you can help Word Balloon, we're Patreon.com/Word Balloon. And, that would be great. And I really appreciate everyone's support. And a lot of people, since making that announcement this year, have even upped their pledges of where they were before. And I thank you very much, everybody. It's incredibly kind. But I did want to hold off on Substack separately, because that was a really interesting thing. Are people still getting new Substack grants, or has that window closed?
I don't think it's closed. There's changes now that the business has launched. They've had time to see what data, they being Substack, what data on what brings them revenue, so they can make decisions on that. We actually have a series of stories that'll give some context to what Substack is, what Substack isn't, like who's actually making the most money. Like we'll have some things on that, and just to basically understand. I think if people understand the business model more, not just for creators, but for Substack, to see what they're putting in and what they're hoping to get out of it. Like, I think it's a different, it's like a variation of Patreon and crowdfunding and stuff like that. But you also see a lot of those projects ultimately end up in a printed edition through Image or some other a publisher.
Yes.
I think in some cases it's like someone came to them and say, "Hey, can you show like these books that you create that'll ultimately end up with a traditional publisher, quote unquote? Can you show it off early to people, and can we charge money for that experience?" So it's basically the early adopters that want to see it, and I think there's that transaction there, and it's just monetizing that transaction, and it has pulled back on what comic creators will share for free, just because they've learned that they can monetize that. But that again makes a difference between like a comic creator may not be able to take a risk on a creator own, but this Substack deal, like for them, like offers a way to finance it, so they can afford to write it, and they can get talented artists to afford to draw it and put those together. Like if Substack or crowdfunding was around, say in the 90s, say when Chris Claremont left like the X-Men, you never know what could happen. Like Chris Claremont's tested the waters with creator owned several times, but he never went all in. You just can imagine like this kind of thing kind of helps those people take that risk.
Well, it's grant money. I mean, everyone, I think a good number of Word Balloon listeners and viewers certainly went to college, and even people like me that went to college in the 80s and stuff. There are grants, and Substack essentially would give them seed money to make their book, bring their audience to the Substack platform, create newsletter content along with whatever pet project they had. And that's why I'm interested in, because I just anecdotally talking to some of the creators that have had Substack deals, the window is ending as far as their obligation to Substack. And like you said, Substack was very much like, hey, that's great. We just want the content first. How you hard publish it in paper is your business, and that's fine. It was an interesting transactional relationship between Substack and not only obviously people in the comic book world, but I know a lot of journalists that also turned to Substack and were doing, essentially the same kind of columns they were doing in newspaper print, but now doing it at Substack. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, an exceptional Substack that he was doing at the Hollywood Reporter prior to Substack tapping him. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, so are those articles about Substack? Are they on the pay side or are they on the free side of Popverse?
We're doing several, so it's like we want to be public service to people. So some of them will be free, but maybe some of the deeper dive ones we'll basically see how that fits in there, so we can go back and fund this. But it's interesting, like some of the deals are ending, I think, because the grants, as we remember from college, they're not like open ended, but they're for like 1 year, 6 months, and I think in some cases there's some grants that haven't started yet because the projects aren't like ready yet. There's some grants that are being like renewed, and like also like I think we're going to show kind of behind the scenes of those grants aren't just like like ended, but there is certain metrics that they need to post so many times a month, that they need to do certain things. It's just interesting. Like James Tynion's been like upfront about the requirements of the grant has changed how he's done his Substack, and it's just like interesting to see that and to understand that, because there's a lot of confusion about what Substack is and what Substack like isn't, and like even on the marketing side, how they promote that these are exclusive. Like these are exclusive in the same way that Marvel digital comics are exclusive, and that we know eventually they're going to end up in print, but it helps them to say exclusive just to drive eyeballs to that, to keep it separated as a marketplace. And but eventually, like barring something like negative happen, is they want to put these out for all the audience to see. But Substack is like those early like adopters that want to basically help the creator directly, that want to support that.
Yeah, agreed. And again, Substack too. And I haven't gone granular. Like I'm looking forward to reading these articles. But they're just they were a new platform. They wanted people to come to their platform and everything. So it's mutually beneficial beyond seeding, this early money, so a creator can get going on a project and stuff. I'm and again, maybe it is still too early, but it's going to be interesting moving forward if they build enough of their own community, much in the same way that organically Kickstarter kind of did it, as just an aside along with all the projects. I know, again, talking to various creators, how they got new readers from Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't they weren't going to Popverse or CBR or Newsarama or
exactly.
wherever. So yeah, it is kind of interesting that Substack is literally manufacturing this community. Kickstarter, it kind of happened organically. Popverse, that's always something I've appreciated at CBR, the Beat, Newsarama, the comments section, message boards. Do you have a community? How's your community over at the Popverse?
Yeah, we're like building that. Is like we have a comment section. We also have a like a Discord that's going on, and we're launching something later this year that's going to have more of that, and also more interactive things at conventions. Like you remember the olden days of Matt Brady having participatory things for Newsarama readers. Like we're going to be bringing something of that back at conventions, and not just Read Pop shows. But there's
good.
Like we look forward to seeing people at San Diego. We look forward to seeing people at like WonderCon. I'll be planning to go to the ALA like annual to see.
Hey, are you coming to Chicago for
Yeah. Like
hey, great, man.
Like any chance to come back to Chicago, I'll be there.
No, that's great to hear, man.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm glad you mentioned Discord. That's great they're using that. And I'm sure you feel the same way. One of my favorite San Diego convention panels is the "How we doing?" I'd like the audience feedback panel,
Yeah.
and it's great, man. And also I always loved. I haven't gone in years, but I always love going to Diamond Summits and
Mm-hmm.
literally hearing the stores. And hey, sometimes legitimate complaints, but it's just like, this is really interesting. This is a side that you don't get to see. It's very important. Everybody knows John at wordballoon.com. Any feedback, positive or negative, I'm here for you. Please let me know. Obviously, Patreon people take advantage of that and will make comments there. So no, it's again, and of course the live chat and everything. If anyone's got a grievance, I'll see. But I get the right to put up whatever I want. So if it's just yousuck.com, you save your thoughts.
Yeah, but I appreciate how you listen to the community. I've seen several times where you'll take comments that you've seen, and like I'll see those I'll, like end up to be basically like interviews that you'll do or questions that you'll ask creators. Like say when you have Bendis on or when you have Tom King on, they seem like generated out of the fan community. That like
Yeah.
especially for you, that it's not a one way conversation. Like you read the comments, you participate in the Patreon.
I try, man, and no, I do want, and that's one of the benefit things that sadly came out of COVID. I mean, I was always 99% an audio product, but I figured, all right, we're all sitting around, we're not doing anything, and I every now and then I would solicit
Yeah.
questions, Facebook, Twitter, whatever, email, and I'm like, hey, why don't you watch with me, and especially repeat guests
Hmm.
like Bendis and Tom King and just a couple weeks ago, I had Philip Kennedy Johnson on again. And it's like, all right, you got a shit ton of questions about Superman. Here he is. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, no, it's great, man. I love doing it. And I'm spoiled. And I know you are too, Chris. We get to talk to these people all the time. So it's kind of nice to let audience members be able to get a chance to ask something as well.
Yeah, like we're constantly trying to figure out ways to like involve the audience because like all of the staff here started out at fans and we continue to be
Sure.
fans, but we know fans have questions that help us inform the questions we ask, but also the articles we write. But also, I'm really looking forward to conventions and being able to like I love as a moderator to be able to have that time set up for fans to ask questions because it's not lost on me that people at conventions they might drive miles, they probably cross state lines and to go there and like meet their fans. Like it's almost like comic creators come to the town for that, and I want to make sure that we highlight that. And I might figure out a way to get fans that even that can't come to conventions, they can ask the people they're fans of through like Word Balloon. They can pop in a question here in the chat, like even for like Bendis and Tom King and everybody. I can really just speak directly to the creators and find out like what they want to know and maybe hear some funny stories like along the way.
Absolutely, man. Robert Roboters 100. This is a very nice compliment. Thank you. He says Warbillin's one of the best of respecting everyone who comes on and pays attention to the chat to let people speak to an extent, but knows when to cut them off. Thank you, buddy. That's very kind. I try.
Yeah.
And again, I'll remind the audio audience that you can find not only the great free content on thepopverse.com all the time, but there's also the premium membership content that we're just talking about, extended print interviews, lots of video as well. And Word Balloon listeners and video viewers can get their first month of Popverse membership for only $1 if you go to bit.ly / the Popverse and then use the coupon code WordBalloonPod, all one word. There you go. So that's terrific. And really, man, no, congratulations. Popverse, has it been a year? Has it been over a year?
We launched back in May, so we're just about at the 7 month mark. Like we're looking forward to celebrating like a full year coming up though.
That's great. That May is my anniversary month as well.
Great.
So it'll be 18 in May.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we can drink. We can drink now.
Yeah.
No, we can't drink now. It's you can vote.
Well, it depends on the state. You never know.
I'm speaking of voting. They announced the SAG Award nominees, and I'm in the SAGs, the Screen Actors Guild, through television and radio unions when they merged with the Screen Actors Guild. So I get to vote on those. but I'm interested. How about in our last closing minutes? Um, like you said, the Popverse also does a lot of coverage of film and TV as well. Streamers, are there any streamers that are on the bubble in terms of dissolving? Because I know in general it seems, and certainly in this post COVID period now, I think a lot of the streamers are looking at the money they spent and seeing how well it impacted subscribers or whatever, and it seems like they might be pulling back a little bit on content. I don't know as far as greenlighting shows.
Yeah, like in some cases, streamers is their main business. Like Netflix, they're streamers. Like HBO Max, they're not streamers. Like Warner Brothers Discovery isn't streamers. That's why you'll see Sandman. It's created and owned by Warner Brothers Discovery, but they didn't put it on HBO Max for a reason you can suggest. Like if they get Netflix to buy it, that's a guaranteed flat money, and they're only giving away the TV rights, and they can still keep like the merchandising rights. That's guaranteed money that they can pay their staff with and like guarantee bills and have a guaranteed source of income. You'll see stuff like that. But there's also streaming services like recently like MGM Plus like announced their slate of new projects. There's some interesting things, including like a Kevin Kline like half-hour comedy that looks pretty interesting. But you got to think, since Amazon acquired like MGM last year, all the talk was about James Bond, but they own like MGM. Like, so technically, that streaming service is under the auspices of Amazon Prime Video. You got to think, how's that going to fit? Will it ultimately be merged? But you got to think, like IMDb has their own streaming service. I believe it's ad supported, but that still like coexists like with Amazon Prime. So I think there'll be some shifts, and you'll see streamers begin to find what they're good at and not just trying to replicate Netflix or like replicate Shudder. Like you'll see like Paramount's made some interesting moves to integrate itself with a lot of partners, like even like Walmart Plus and things like that, just to get to where the audience is instead of Netflix through their business model got the audience to come to them. Well, you'll see I like Paramount deciding to go where the audience is, and
Right.
I'm interested to see that. But also, in some cases where the company that owns streamers, if they also own, I'll say, terrestrial channels, like you'll see like syndicating. I could see a world where the Star Trek shows, which are currently exclusive to Paramount Plus, like I would love to see those simulcast that maybe old world on like CBS. Like I would love to see Star Trek on CBS like again,
Well,
like even just for special episodes.
they did run Discovery in the
Mhm.
summer weeks, and it's interesting, Chris, because honestly, in the case specifically of Star Trek, all of us rabid fans are going to buy Paramount Plus because we want to see it. And I think by the time it did run on CBS, it was tapped out. The people had already bought their DVDs if they didn't buy Paramount Plus or CBS All, what it was called, CBS All Access, whatever it was. And so yeah, I don't know. I agree with you. I'm very interested to see what MGM does. Hey, I'm waiting for Stargate to come back.
Yeah.
Come on, man. That's a great franchise, and I certainly hope so. And it's been interesting to see that they are more interested in sci-fi and geek-related content. So that's great. I'm thrilled about that. And also the free streamers with ads. Pluto is a hell of a deal. Tubi is a hell of a deal. And Freevee is the IMDb Amazon free channel and everything. No, I think these are all smart. Regarding Warner and Discovery, I mean, we're seeing them yank off shows, and that's because they would rather make the licensing money, like you were describing the Sandman Netflix relationship. It's interesting, and yeah, I just again, I'm just sitting here on the other side of the aisle eating popcorn, and
Yeah,
watching what happens.
like it's interesting. You see, Netflix makes their decision on how much subscribers they have. While like Warner Brothers, they just threw everything like in there to try to get the subscribers they want, and now they realize this is what they have, and they set that benchmark, and now it becomes the calculus of how much they can put on that, but how much they should get other revenue through other realms. Like it just becomes almost a business decision. While at the same time, it's heartbreaking for fans that just the promise of what HBO Max is now being changed, and that's a hard thing for anyone to
Yeah.
swallow.
Oh my God! I mean, we're losing all the great DC animation, all the Justice League shows and stuff at the end of the month, and it's like, wait a minute. Or then literally they just did it with Stargate. Stargate on Amazon. All the
Mhm.
different Stargates were there, and at the end of December, it's like, where are they? And
Yeah.
actually, Paramount licensed all the Star Trek movies to HBO, and we had that. I mean, again, you'll forgive me, but I'm a Star Trek addict. Uh, November 1st, all the Star Trek movies weren't on Paramount Plus, and it's like, where the hell did they go? And then
Yeah.
thank God by December 1st they were all on HBO, and it's like, all right, now I understand what happened. They were making
Yeah,
money.
there's a shifting around, like the same thing. Like DC like announced that the animated line is in the talks of making a big deal with Amazon. I imagine that's for like Amazon will give them some guaranteed money to put like some great like the cartoons on there, like maybe create some exclusive for Amazon. There's things like that, like all sorts of possibilities. But just think when they say exclusive, like exclusives only last for so long. The same
Right.
way Batman the animated series was exclusive to what was it, Fox, like in the 90s, but now it's
Yeah, back when
on
it started. Right.
several different series. Like I have DVDs, I have Blu-rays, like I may have some VHS tapes somewhere. Like at a certain point, like it's going to be out like in other platforms.
Absolutely, man. No, no. Licensing is as important as getting subscribers. And again, that's why I think what's happening in streamers are just as interesting as what's happening on the networks and on in the films as well. No, it's all. And again, this is the other thing: comics, TV, film, especially when you talk about the big two, it's all the same business, and it's very interesting to see how it impacts all three of those spheres
Yeah,
as we move forward. It's going to be a fun year this year, 2023, and the Popverse is going to be covering it extensively, and both on their free content and of their bonus content as well.
yeah,
So take advantage of the Popverse membership for $1 to Word Balloon listeners and viewers. Visit bit.ly/the Popverse and use the coupon code Word Balloon Pod. Well done, Chris. It's always good to talk to you, man. I hope to see you at C2E2. If you need me on any panels, I'm ready to talk.
oh, you say that, but I'm gonna like ask you as soon as we get off the call. Here we go. So everybody, yeah, thanks for listening. Make sure to ping John and I if you have any questions, and maybe look for John and I together at C2E2 at the end of March.
That would be great, man. As always,
Okay.
everybody, thanks for watching. I will have another Word Balloon tomorrow night. Danny Fingeroff is going to come
Oh,
on.
excellent.
And yeah, we meant to do this last month, but my schedule got screwed up. But we're going to celebrate the Stan Lee centennial and talk about his wonderful biography about Stan, but a whole lot more. And that's going to be on the next Word Balloon Live tomorrow night. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.